want to create a number guessing game. And I'm going to try to move a little bit slowly through this so that you can follow along. And if not, I will put up the video of me live coding this assignment. Not an assignment, it's a sandbox, so no grade. You don't have to follow along. If you learn best by just watching, that's fine too. But I'm going to show you how I would create a number guessing game. Okay? So we'll use the code provided. There's some on Canvas. I'm going to grab it in just a second. I'm going to get a number from the user, convert that to an integer. And I'm going to say, is the number that the user guessed the same as what the computer guessed? Or is that number higher or lower than what the computer said? So let's take a look and get that code first. Okay, module 4. Oop, wrong class even. Gosh. I get all my animals mixed up here. That's what I get for being fancy, I guess. Module 4 of Python. Okay, so there's code for Sandbox from Lecture 1 right here. Let's take a look at this. This code has some helpful comments and also a couple of statements that you don't understand yet, but that's okay. So let's play around with this. I'm going to paste that in, and because this broke the line thing, I'm just going to put it back up there. There we go. So what we have here is the first thing is the first line 1 is import random. We're importing a module there called random. We're going to be using and even creating modules in this class. Remember when I said that the cool thing about Python is that it's expandable? Modules are the way we do it. So I'm pulling in some commands, some functions that are not part of the core Python library. That's what import means. So I'm importing a set of functions that have to do with getting random numbers or choosing random things. So I create an integer, int guess, that is a random integer between 1 and 10. That's all that means. So you can just understand int guess is a random integer between 1 and 10, and then it prints it out. So there we go. Random integer is 3. Right now, not a very hard guessing game. The computer just gives it up right away. That's okay. So I'm going to take this code and actually I'm going to take this comment and just stick it up here on top, because this is my code for getting a random number. Okay. Next thing I want to do is get a number from the user. So I'm going to say int user equals input, give me a number between 1 and 10. Okay, so when they type that number, what data type is it going to be?
String.
A string. It's going to be a string. So I'm going to, once again, I'm going to trust the user. Never a good idea, but I'm going to trust them just for the sake of this game to keep it simple. And I'm going to convert that to an int on the fly here by nesting the input inside the int function. So that means whatever they type is going to be turned into an int. If they type banana, then I'm going to get an error. But that's okay. We'll survive. Okay, excuse me while I indulge my need to have these two lines more even. There we go. All right, so now I have to use an if, elif, and else branch to tell them if they were right or not. Since we're dealing with ints, there's only a few possibilities, but we'll just say if, and by the way, there are a couple of ways I could structure this that are all okay. But I'm going to say if int guess equals int user, that means they guessed right. Okay, I'm going to print you got it Next, I'm going to go elif if int guess was less than int user. That means the user guessed higher than the number. Okay. And in that case, I'm going to print your guess was too high. I could say, I could at this point tell them the number, print, I'm going to use an F string here, the number was int guess. Okay, so if they didn't guess it correctly, and they didn't guess too high, the only other possibility is that they guessed too low. I could use an elif here to specify that they guessed too low. I could say elif int guess is less than int user, like that, but I don't need to do all that work because I know that there's only one possibility. If this isn't true, and if this isn't true, the guess has to be too low. So I'm just going to say else. And I'm going to say lower as my comment, and then print your guess was too low. And then the number was in guess. And then at the end here, I'm just going to say a little thank you for playing my game. Thanks for playing my game. Okay, everybody remember what \n means here? Extra line break. I just, for presentation's sake, it's a little bit more interesting. And I want to have a print. I want to print a couple extra lines between their guess and the results. So before my print, or before my if branch here, I'm just going to throw a couple of lines in there. So that'll just print a couple of blank lines, just to space it out a little bit. Okay? So here is my, I'm getting the random number, I'm getting the user's guess, and I'm turning it into an int. Then I'm printing a couple of blank lines just for cosmetics. And I go straight into my if, elif, else, where I say, if it's equal, tell them they got it right. If the computer's guess is lower than the end user guess, or the end user was higher, then you say your guess was too high and tell them the number. Otherwise, because if it's not equal or higher, it has to be lower. Your guess was too low, and there's the number. And then finally, no matter what, we thank them for playing the game. So let's test it out. Okay, so I left the print on so I could see what the computer's guess was, so I can try all of the conditions. This is good usability testing. So I choose 7. It says, you got it, thanks for playing my game. Let's run it again. I'm going to guess too low. 1. Your guess was too low, the number was 3, thanks for playing my game. And let's test the third condition, which is too high. Yay, it works. Alright, so now I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to comment out that line of code where the number gets printed. Now it becomes an actual game where I have to guess. So I'm going to try 5. Too low, the number was 7. Okay? So that is how you take care of that sandbox. So if you want, you can snap a quick photo of that. If you don't, that's cool too. I'm going to give you a second. But that structure is going to be very common throughout the rest of this class, as will other structures. So we really want to get used to and comfortable with this idea of we have a statement that branches, we put a colon, we indent, this is what our code looks like, That's kind of a normal thing. And we will have indented code inside of indented code inside of indented code. Will you go 4 or 5 levels? Maybe sometimes. Probably not too often. Because you don't really need that level of complexity. You can have it, but you don't often need it. Okay? So that's the Sandbox assignment. So, moving on, reviewing that structure, right? If something is true, then we do that. Keep the colon and the indent. We can have one if statement, as many elif statements as we want, and else. The expression in if and all of the elifs should be mutually exclusive. Don't forget that. They should not ever allow, you should never create this so that more than one can be true. Now,